We'll just go ahead and get started. My name is Laura Jackson. I am the volunteer coordinator of the Resident Services Program for AHC. Really appreciate all of you volunteering. Goodness, I got muted somehow. Sorry about that. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are looking forward to learning a little bit more about Zoom. As you know, our programs are going to be through Zoom this fall, and we've got a volunteer who has been tutoring through Zoom all summer, so he's going to have some great tips. I don't want to scare anybody off. We're not going to ask you to be Zoom experts. You don't have to pass at 100% of the quiz at the end of the night. Kidding, no quiz at the end of the night. But we just want to get you familiar with some of the great features that Zoom has, and then you can reach out to your center staff or to me at any time if you want to learn more about some of these features. So again, thank you for coming, and I'll just go ahead and get started. Feature number 1 is the mute button. And just so you know, Zoom does come up on different devices differently, but for me, and I think for most of us, the main toolbar is at the bottom of the screen, and mute is on the far left. It is a great idea to know where that is in case your dog starts barking or whatever it is. So the mute button, very important. The next button over is the stop and start video. Again, probably many of you are familiar with that. It does have a little up arrow right beside the stop and start video that will let you set a virtual background. Some of you might find that your what device you're using isn't updated enough to have a virtual background, but you can see behind me I've got my AHC logo, and so you're welcome to fiddle around with that. Not essential to being a volunteer, but it is a really nice feature. The next feature that I'm going to talk about is the chat button. And so I am going to send everyone a chat right now. Chat is something that you can do to everyone on the call or to one individual on the call. One way that this might come in handy when you are when you're tutoring, we're going to put you into breakout rooms when you're tutoring, and then the breakout rooms end automatically at a set time by your center staff. If you get cut off, you didn't get to finish your conversation, you can send your student a chat, you know, great to see you tonight, see you next week, something like that. Does everybody see my chat? My chat says that when we go into the breakout rooms later, we're going to be sharing something. So if you want to start thinking now what you're going to share later with the other people in your group, you can start doing that. But those are some of the basic features of Zoom. And then Bernie Piper is going to talk you through more. So thanks, Bernie.
So yeah, I'm so glad to see everybody here tonight. And like Laura said, nobody should feel like they have to be a Zoom expert. I never really heard of Zoom or thought much about it until the pandemic, and I started tutoring a couple of students actually during the school year and through the summer, and we kind of learned together, and definitely leverage the students you're working with because they can help bring you along. I know the students I worked with taught me a lot as well. So look at it as sort of a journey that you can both go on together. But so I'm going to first start talking about share screen. And so share screen is one of these nice features that you can see that that'll actually sort of build off each other. So the share screen, and also the important thing to remember about share screen is that it works both ways. You can share your screen with the student, and the student can share his screen with you. And it can be really informative in terms of seeing what the student is working on. So I use the share screen a lot to say, okay, let me see what your assignments are, to see the actual homework. And so we'll build off the share screen as we go through the next few minutes. And also, I'm going to show you quite a few things, but don't worry if you don't remember it all. There are some job aids that I believe Laura sent out that'll help you, that you can go back to and refer to later. So the way share screen works is you essentially are just sharing your screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up my browser, and you should be able now to see the browse on my Google Chrome up on the screen. And I've got a page, it's through the Smithsonian, it's called Tween Tribune. It's a nice resource for reading. And so you can pull up an article based on the student's reading level, and you can read an article together. That's a very nice basic feature. I'm going to move on and talk about an Annotate feature, which builds on the share screen feature next. And so the way Annotate works is that it's a tool that you can collaborate together. And I haven't really used Annotate in real time. Laura and I were talking a little bit about this last week, and I really hadn't found a good use for it until I started thinking about it a little bit. And I know my student, he's taking geography this year, and I thought, oh, a map would be a really good way to do share screen, and we could collaborate together on learning, parts of the world. So with the Annotate screen, you can't see it at the moment, but there's a toolbar that comes up, and there are different features that show different features that are available. You can type text, you can draw, you can you can draw, you can circle. So if I circle, if I circle North and part of South America, I meant to just circle North America, but you get the idea. And then and it can work with the student as well. So so for Laura, I think can you turn on the Annotate feature?
Yes, I can. So at the top of my screen, I see a little green bar that says you are viewing Bernie Piper's screen. And then to the right of that, I see something that says view options with a little down arrow. So I click that down arrow, and one of my choices is Annotate. So now I've got a bar that's got the text tool that he talked about. It's got the line drawing tool. I'm circling part of the Middle East there in blue. If I don't like what I did, I can erase it with an eraser. There's a stamp, so I can give myself a star because I did a good job circling Egypt, or I can, that wasn't Egypt, sorry, but I could put star on the map. So anyway, that's how I found the Annotate bar, was in that top part right where it said in green that I was viewing Bernie's screen.
And so the thing to keep in mind too about Annotate, it's great for real time what we're doing now, but the thing to keep in mind, it doesn't save what we've done on this document to that page, what's on Annotate. Think of it as sort of like a plastic sheet on the old projector days that fed over the sheet, and you can mark on it and write on it, but it doesn't stay with that actual document. You're not changing that document. This map is still blank and the same. There is a save feature on that toolbar that you can save it to a graphic. It's a little wonky in Zoom and goes beyond the bounds of our discussion, but there is a way to save it. But the important thing to keep in mind is you can't save it, but you can also clear it out. So I just cleared out everything, and we can start over again. So that's really a nice feature of the Annotate function. The other thing that I quickly wanted to show you before we jump into remote control is the Whiteboard. Now, the Whiteboard also is one of these features that I haven't really found a whole lot of utility for, because if I wanted to type something, I would just do it on a Word document or a Google Docs. There is a drawing feature on it as well, but it works just like a whiteboard or a chalkboard. But if you're like me, I don't draw so well with my mouse. As you'll see, I'll try to make a B, and that was a disaster. But I'll show you a way I figured out through leveraging your iPad, if you have an iPad where it's easier to draw. Now, if you have a Microsoft Surface, for example, or a touch screen on whatever device you're doing your Zoom session, the whiteboard may be a good feature for you. So that's why I wanted to share and briefly mention that. So that's Whiteboard and Annotate. Next, I'm going to show you how the remote control feature works. And the remote control feature was really, so I saw a question, how do you get to the whiteboard? So if you look at your share screen, and actually, let me just show you. I've made a screenshot of that. So I can't show you how I bring up share screen. You can't see what I'm seeing at the moment, but I can show you a screenshot because I figured that would be a question. So if you look here, this is what it'll look like. When you hit share screen on your toolbar, this window will pop up and you'll see these little boxes for all of the different windows that are open on your application. So it may be a little small to see here, but you'll see little boxes for your internet browser, if you have PDF files open, Microsoft Word. The whiteboard feature will also be one of the boxes. It's on the top row, whiteboard and iPhone, iPad, and you simply select it and click share. So that's how you pull up the whiteboard or any other of the apps. It's a subset of the share screen. So to move on to the next level is to jump into remote control. So I'm going to do another share screen, and I'm going to flip over to a Google Docs document, a word processing document. And so when you do your share screen, then if you want to move to the function of remote control, if you go back to the toolbar, once again, this is in the job aid. There's a graphic that shows you step by step how to do this. You will, it's to the immediate right of Annotate. It says remote control. And so I'm going to give remote control to Laura. And so Laura now has control of this word processing document, and she can make changes within the document. So I found this a really helpful feature if I'm helping edit a student's work. I can highlight or mark up and say, hey, this is a run-on sentence, or this paragraph, I'll highlight a paragraph with the highlighter and say that's not enough detail, or sometimes I'll even help them with the corrections. So it's really helps bridge that gap between the virtual world and being there in person. So there you go. You see Laura just put on the screen. Laura's typing, not Bernie. See, no hands. So and it can work the other way as well. So if you want to give remote control of your browser because you want the student to do an internet search on your browser, you can do that. Typically, it works the other way. I ask the student to do the remote control sharing and give me control so that I can support them and help them with their homework. And so I see the question, does the remote control work only in certain apps like Google Docs? So that's a really good question. It technically works on any app that is on your computer. What I have learned though is, because I played with it where I have my old laptop and my current laptop and tested this out, you can technically do it in like a Microsoft Word document, but there is a lag time and it gets a little wonky if the other person doesn't have Microsoft Word as well. So I would stick to cloud-based software like Google Docs because it's available to everyone, and that seems to work a little bit faster. So that would be my recommendation. But technically, the remote control works on any app that is on your computer. So the next feature that I'd like to show you is the mirroring the mirroring function. And so the mirroring function for me, I kind of stumbled into it backwards. I was actually using the remote camera feature, which I can show you at the end, or we can talk about it, because I needed a way to do math problems. It's really hard to work math problems typing. You can't do fraction conversions or show how long division works really well by typing it. You need a medium where you can write, or I do. So this was really a game changer for me. And so the way the mirroring function works, it's once again, it's building off of this share screen platform. So you go back to share screen, and the third button on the screen that'll pop up when you do share screen is iPhone/iPad. And so my understanding is it only works on Apple on Apple technology. There isn't an Android solution as of yet. But if you have an iPad or an iPhone, you hit that and you'll get step-by-step instructions, and it's also in the job aid as well. But all you do is it'll tell you in the pop-up window based on your Apple device, you either swipe up or swipe down based on the model, and you'll tap a button that states screen sharing, and then your Zoom call will pop up, and you can share the screen. And actually, I'm having a little trouble right now. It's a little slow. And that is one of the real life features of the screen sharing. Sometimes I have to stop and do it again. It doesn't quite take the first time. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to try it again. There we go. And it popped up the second time. And so now what you should see is you should see a blurry version of my iPad. And I think this is just by Zoom to give you a little bit of privacy to make sure you want to share whatever's on your iPad with the other individual. So it's also in this job aid that Laura shared with you. It'll tell you, you'll double tap the screen and now you can see my iPad. And so from my experience, a couple of different really nice features that I've leveraged off of the screen mirroring and the iPad is that I mentioned math is using one of these memo features where you can use a stylus or your finger if you write with your finger. I prefer stylus, but you can bring up a notepad and you can explain long division, for example. So 450 divided by 25, I can write it on the screen and I can ask the student, okay, so what's our first step? What do we have to do? And so we got to look at the 45. So 25 will only go in one time. What do I do next? I pull down the 0. So you get the idea. That's really a nice feature for me that really helped explain math in a new way to the student. Now, one of the shortcomings of this, and I've tried to test it, and I've looked it up. It doesn't work where you can't do remote control with screen sharing. You can only project onto the screen and be in control of that. I wish you could sort of go back and forth with that, but we don't have Zoom doesn't offer that capability at this time. The other major feature I wanted to demonstrate with the iPad screen mirroring is the use of the Kindle. So I really to share reading together. The nice thing is you can project a book, any book in your Kindle library or anything that you borrow from the Arlington Library as an ebook or any other e-reader for that matter that you have on your iPad, you can share. And another nice thing that I recently discovered with this is not only you can project and read together on the screen, you can pull in that Annotate feature. So if you go back to New Screen and if you go back to annotate on the toolbar. I said new screen, but if you go to annotate, and I lost my iPad, sorry about that. Let me pop it back up. I see some questions. Let me take the questions while it's thinking about this. So for the, can you say again how to get to the mirror function? So the mirror function, it's a function of share screen. So let me show you the image again. So when you pull up share screen, when you hit the share screen button, you will see, I'll show you the screenshot. Whoops. This is the basic one. So on the share screenshot right here, the iPhone, iPad, it's the third block on the share screen mode. So it's sharing your screen, Whiteboard is second, and then iPhone, iPad is how you mirror your iPad. So I'm gonna go back again and do the share screen of the actual iPad. Okay. And as I was saying, one of the things I learned is you can tie in the Annotate feature. And as we showed earlier with the geography map, it's something that you can collaborate on together with your student. So you could ask the student, for example, read the page and tell me, to sort of test their comprehension, what did Dad actually end up doing? And so I caught him out in the garage stuffing his face with brownies, and have him highlight that for you. And so that adds another level of interaction with reading that you can incorporate. But like I said, for me, the game changer of the screen mirroring is that you can pull in anything on your iPad and any books in your library into the Zoom call, which I think is really a nice feature. And let me jump back and look at the questions. Can we mirror with an Apple laptop? That I don't know. It's something worth trying. And this is one of the things I invite you to do as well, is you can set up a Zoom call with yourself and try these things. Try out the share screen and do the screen mirroring of the iPad and see if it comes up. The other thing, and this is mentioned in the job aid as well, that I want to caution you about, as you saw, it can be a little bit wonky doing the share screen. Don't panic if it doesn't work the first time. You saw I practiced it before I came into the meeting tonight, and it worked, and then it didn't work when I did it in real time. But I did it again, and it worked just fine. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind. So keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that if you are doing a share screen of the iPhone, iPad, that you're on the same network. If you're using your phone plan, they won't talk to each other, and the share screen won't work. But there's a warning or a note to that in the job aid as well. Can you say again how to get to the mirror? Okay, get to the mirror function. I believe I showed that. Any alternatives for non-Mac users? Not to my knowledge. That would be useful since I use an Android phone, but to my knowledge, only iPads and iPhones. Yes, to my understanding, it can be the iPhone. I don't have an iPhone, but my understanding is yes, you can use it with iPhones or iPads. Yeah, iPhone also works with mirroring. Somebody already answered that. Great. How is mirroring different from the Whiteboard where you can write or draw? So the difference between mirroring is it's pulling your other Apple device, your iPhone or your iPad into the Zoom call. The Whiteboard is just like a whiteboard like you would see in a schoolroom or a conference room. It's just a blank thing. By mirroring, you're pulling in any apps that are on your iPhone. And so I was highlighting the Kindle and the writing pad where I can use the stylus to show how to solve math problems. Do I have to have any Zoom account, or will AHC give us one or let us share theirs? So I believe, Laura, you required everybody to sign up to download. Oh, you're on mute. You need to go off mute.
Let me answer that. Is that when you are, our center staff will be setting up the Zoom calls and inviting everybody to participate. You do not have to have a Zoom account to do that. You will get the link and you'll participate. If you want to practice any of this on your own before you get started, you can set up a Zoom account for free, and you get 45-minute Zoom meetings for free. And so you can set up an account on your own and practice for 45 minutes. Honestly, you can end that meeting and start another meeting immediately with yourself if you're really having a long practice session with yourself. But to participate in our sessions, you don't need an account. We have official accounts that we will send you the invitation for.
Thank you. And yeah, so with the, and Laura's right, you're limited to 45 minutes if it's more than 2 people on the call. But if you're just playing around with yourself, you can technically keep it up for hours. Or if you're just doing one-on-one, that's a nice feature. If you're like me, talking to yourself with your old computer and your new computer to see what works and what doesn't, that there is no time limit. But Laura is absolutely right. If it's more than 2 people, there is a 45-minute limit, or you can pay for the paid subscription, which.
Another thing that I'm going to be working on to get out more instructions around this is that you can use the Arlington County Library and other systems to borrow ebooks, and you can share those with your student through a web browser. So you don't have to have an iPad and have the Kindle app. There are ways to get books to share through a web browser, and then you can do that share screen and go to the website that you've pulled up, or you can even just pull up the generic library website and you and your student can look at that together and pick out a book on share screen and then borrow it. This is assuming that you have an Arlington County Library account, but then you can borrow that and start reading that. So it doesn't have to be through the Kindle app, and it doesn't have to be on an iPad or another Apple device.
And so in the couple of minutes I have left, the last thing I think that was on the agenda was the remote camera. I'm not actually going to show that to you, but I do want to call it out because actually that's how I kind of started solving math problems. And maybe you have an extra webcam hanging around, and maybe you don't have an iPad. You can plug in your extra Zoom cam, and what I was doing is I was propping it up on a chair and projecting it onto my table and using a notepad to write or to work out math problems. And the way you do that, it builds off the same function of share screen, and I will show you how to set it up, which is actually quite easy. But you go back to share screen, and then let me pull up the screenshot. Under share screen, there will be different tabs, and I know it's a little small to see, but if you start out on basic, which is what I've been showing you, the basic tab right here, is there an arrow showing it, Laura? Can you see my cursor or no? Okay, so this is the basic tab, which is what we've been in most of the time. Here is where you see all your open apps. But under the advanced tab, which is next to basic, you have the option of blocking off a portion of your screen or playing only music, or this third one is content from a second camera. So if you plug in another webcam into your laptop, and like me, you're propping it up on the chair, you can share that cam and project onto the table where you're writing. But like I said, for me, the iPad was a much better solution to solve that problem. But I mentioned that because it is something that I used and it worked. It was just a little awkward. And if you don't have an iPad, but you do have a second webcam, that's another way of adding another dynamic to your tutoring.
All right, thank you so much, Bernie. That was really great. Let me just reiterate to everybody that we do not expect you to be Zoom experts at the end of the night, at the end of the week, anything like that. We just wanted to show you some of these great features. So what we're going to do now is we're going to send everybody into breakout rooms by the center where you'll be volunteering. And a few of you haven't yet been assigned, and you'll stay with me. Once you're in the breakout room, I want everyone to practice sharing something on their screen. So if you have something super private that you don't want anybody to see, your bank statements, go ahead and shut that out. And then you can think of something to share. You can say, I want to look at the Arlington County website, the Arlington Library System, or I have a photo of my grandchild. But I think that there should be time for everybody to share the screen with each other. So everybody, please do that. And then if you have time in your breakout room and you're going to be there for about 20 minutes, then you can practice one of these other features. You can annotate somebody else's, whatever they're sharing, draw a funny face on their grandchild. So if you have time, do that. When you're in the breakout rooms, there's a feature called Ask for Help. So you can ask for help, and Bernie and I, especially Bernie, will be waiting to answer your questions in the main room. So that's going to be a great feature when you're working with your student. If you ever need to get staff help, the staff at your center will be available through that Ask for Help in the breakout room. And then I do hope that everybody will